I'm a data scientist for an e-commerce company, and I've been asked by my management to help the marketing team develop a group of target audiences for their next campaign. They've requested that customers be split into 5 groups based on order behaviors and for some descriptive statistics about each group. To do this, I'll create and summarize a k-means clustering model and possibly even create a visualization for it using the available e-commerce data we have. Additionally, I'd like to take it one step further and see if I can provide the marketing team with some actionable next steps to take with each of these groups to streamline and speed up their work efforts a bit. Using Duet AI, I'm hopeful that I'll be able to do all this and take that extra step without too much additional time needed from my end. I'll need to use BigQuery Studio to complete my task, so first I need to enable it. Starting in the Google Cloud Console, I'll go to the BigQuery page, and I can see in the lower left-hand corner, there's a pop-up that says, "Try new code management features of BigQuery Studio in preview." Note that you may or may not see this depending on when you're accessing BigQuery Studio, as it may be out of preview by the time that you check it out. So I'll click Enable Now. A list of required APIs will appear, and I'll click Enable All. Skip the permissions section and enable all of the additional APIs as well. Back in BigQuery Studio, at the top of the page, I'll click this drop-down arrow and select Compose New Python Notebook. You'll have to choose a region to store your code assets from the drop-down and click Select. A new sample notebook will pop up with some example cells, which you can check out if you want, but I'm actually going to delete them so I can use this notebook for my task. To do this, I can click the garbage can icon that appears when I hover over each cell. Now, I'll need to connect to a runtime. In the upper right-hand corner of the notebook, I'll click the drop-down and select Connect to a runtime. Then, select Create a new runtime, leave the default, and click Connect. That can take a little while if it's your first time connecting to a runtime or if it's been more than a few hours since you last connected. If it's taking some time, I can still move on to the next step, which is creating a BigQuery dataset. To do that, I can click the 3 dots next to my project in the Explorer pane and select Create Dataset. I'll name the dataset e-commerce and select the multi-region location type and US, multiple regions in the United States. Click Create Dataset, and I can see in the Explorer pane that my dataset has been created. Now, back in the notebook, I'm going to start pasting in some code that I have prepared to import the necessary libraries, define the variables I'll use in the upcoming steps, and initiate the connection for BigQuery and Vertex AI. To add code into the notebook, I'll click this plus code button that appears when I hover at the top of the window. And the first set of code I'll paste in is to import the necessary libraries. Next, I'll paste in some code to define the variables like dataset name, model name, and table name, and to initiate the BigQuery and Vertex AI connection. Now my runtime is connected, which I know because I can see this green check mark in the upper corner here, so I can run these code cells by clicking the play button to the left of each cell. I can click multiple at once, and it'll just queue them up. My initial steps are complete, so next I can create and import a base table as a BigQuery Dataframe. This table will serve as my base table moving forward, and the Duet AI magic here will allow me to run BigQuery SQL right from a notebook cell. So again, I'll create a new code cell and paste in my code and run it. Now I'll use the Generate AI feature by adding a new code cell and clicking Generate with AI. I want to create a BigQuery data frame with the table I just created and have it show me the top 10 records. And all I have to do is insert a natural language prompt with the table I want referenced and hit enter. So here we go. It's generated some code for me to use. This looks right, so I'm going to go ahead and run the code. And boom, I can see the data frame output displayed right here in my notebook. Now that I was able to get my customer data in a BigQuery Dataframe, I can create a k-means clustering model to split the customer data into clusters based on different variables, like recency, order count, and spend, and then visualize the data. In a new code cell, I'll use the Generate with AI feature again and enter a prompt asking for a few things. First, for the data frame to be split into test and training data for a k-means clustering algorithm. Second, to create a k-means clustering model with 5 clusters. And lastly, ask to save the model to BigQuery. Press enter and see what it gives me. Great, so it popped out some code and it has the steps that I want with what looks like the right code. So I'll run it. And now my model should be created. If I refresh the content of my Explorer panel by clicking the 3 dots and refresh content, the model should pop up under my e-commerce dataset. There it is, customer segmentation model under the e-commerce dataset. The next step is to define a new BigQuery Dataframe that joins the segment or cluster produced by the k-means model back to the original data. So again, we'll use the Generate with AI feature and enter a prompt to create a new data frame. Again, some nice code output. Looks good, so I'll run it. Now that my job is finished, I want to double check that this cluster column has actually been added to my dataset. So I'll run this code quickly to show me the top 10 records again, like I did before. And I can see here in the table that the cluster column has been added. So now we can create a basic visualization to see what the data looks like. I'll go for a scatter plot using the predictions data frame I created to look at the relationship between the days since last order by average spend and colored by cluster, which was just generated using our k-means model. So I'll prompt Generate with AI to generate a scatter plot, and I'll tell it what to put on each axis as well as a title, attribute grouped by k-means cluster. Okay, it gives me the output. I'll double check that everything looks good. And run the code. And there it is, the scatterplot visual of attributes grouped by k-means cluster with average spend on the y-axis and days since last order on the x-axis. It's pretty awesome that I can split my data into clusters and visualize it right here inside this Python notebook in BigQuery Studio. But let's take it that one step further and use the magic of LLMs to really help the marketing team with their campaign. We can use the cluster information to ask the LLM for help generating insights on each cluster. To do this, first, we'll need to summarize the clusters so we can see what they look like. In a new code cell, I'll paste this code that defines a new data frame, which displays summary statistics for each of the clusters. And I'll run it. Okay, so already just from looking at the results here, I can immediately glean some insights from the table. I have 5 clusters, and I can see some clusters have a higher spend, while others have a higher count of orders and more. This is great information, but it's a lot of metrics and cluster info. So I'm going to use some code to convert the data frame into a string so that I can pass it into the LLM call. So I'll run this. It'll give me this output that is in a string format and is called cluster info as I defined in my input. Now I can take this cluster info and use it to define a prompt. so that the LLM, text Bison, knows what I'm asking for. So to define this prompt, I'll paste in some code that says, this information will be referred to as prompt, and then what I want from the model. In this case, I'll say it's a creative brand strategist, and given the following clusters, it should come up with a persona, title, and next marketing action for each cluster, using that cluster info that was previously created. Then I'll run it, and there won't be an output because I'm just defining the variable called prompt that I'll use to call the LLM. So far we've created a k-means model, assigned each customer a cluster from the model, generated summary statistics for each cluster, and defined a prompt. With my prompt defined, I can now call the text Bison model to generate customer insights and next steps for the marketing campaign. Using Generate with AI, I'll enter a prompt to call the text Bison model and have it generate a marketing campaign using the variable prompt that I just defined. It gives me an output, which looks good. So I'll run it, and awesome. Okay, this is really cool. There's information about each cluster, title, persona, and next marketing step for each cluster, like a personalized email or a special offer. And it's in a format that is easily shareable with the marketing team. Normally, it would take hours of manual work to gather customized information accounting for taste, spend, and buy frequency as a data scientist. Now, I was able to do this in minutes by combining generative AI with the data in BigQuery. Make sure to check out the links in the description to learn more about getting started with Duet AI and BigQuery Studio.